Hello. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I'm Cristina Corteva, Executive Director of the Sno-Libraries Foundation, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you to the 2026 Trudy Sundberg Lecture Series. This is the 12th year of the Trudy Sundberg Lecture Series. Trudy was a beloved Oak Harbor teacher and civic leader, and many of her family members and friends are here with us tonight. We will learn more about her from her granddaughter, Kristen, in just a few minutes. For us at the Foundation, it has been a joy and a pleasure to organize this program while carrying on Trudy's legacy as we share so many of Trudy's values, her commitment to exchanging diverse ideas in an environment of respect and consideration, her love of lifelong learning and empowering young adults on their life journey, and her passion for intellectual freedom. This lecture series and the opportunity to introduce exceptional speakers to the Whidbey Island community have been the perfect marriage. In Trudy's honor, each year we bring our featured speaker to a local school. And earlier today, we were with Scott Shigeoka at South Whidbey High School, where he presented in front of nearly 350 students. It was a wonderful experience seeing how well the students connected with him, their reactions, their excitement, and they had so many questions we couldn't answer all of them. And these encounters between the students and the speakers always feel magical. Knowing how an idea can spark someone's curiosity or even a lifetime of passion, our hope for these presentations is that they help plant the seeds and encourage new perspectives and new ways of seeing the world among our youth. I'd like to take a moment and acknowledge some of the people in the room this evening. And I want to start with our amazing planning committee. Please raise your hand if you serve on the planning committee. They worked very hard a whole year to bring this program to you. I also want to thank our generous sponsors. They're all incredibly generous businesses and organizations without whose support the series would not be possible. Let's give them a big round of applause. I also want to acknowledge the Sno-Libraries Foundation board members and the Sno-Libraries Board of Trustees members who are with us this evening. Please raise your hand if you serve on either board. Also with us today is Sno-Libraries Executive Director Eric Howard. And last but not least, let's give a round of applause to the staff and volunteers at Whidbey Island Center for the Arts. And by the way, they just completed a major renovation, including the beautiful brand new seats that you are all sitting in tonight. And they've been an amazing partner and a host of these lectures, and we look forward to our continued partnership. If you're new to the work of the Sno-Libraries Foundation, we are Sno-Libraries' nonprofit fundraising partner. Funding from the foundation supports innovative programs in both Island and Snohomish counties and helps the library enhance its services. Programs that we support include adult and early and adult literacy programs such as summer reading, third graders read together, Sno-Isle reads together, and world language story times, author talks, classes and workshops, Discover Passes, the library collection, building renovations, and so much more. Tonight, I'd like to mention just one local initiative here on Whidbey Island that we are very excited to support. It is a wonderful new partnership with local organizations, including the Whidbey Community Foundation, that helps provide bags to nearly 300 families with various supplies and books, and these are families with newborns. And these bags are delivered directly to the parents after giving birth at Island Hospital. The bags were very well received last year, and we are pleased to continue to support this wonderful initiative helping local families. Thank you. If you enjoyed tonight's presentation, please consider supporting our work. The Trudy Sundberg Lecture Series is 100% funded through donations, and every gift makes a difference. In your program, there is a QR code. You can use that code or the provided envelope to make a donation and support our work. Thank you for your consideration and support. And now, it is my pleasure to welcome Trudy's granddaughter, Christine Sundberg.
Hi there. This is so fun because I feel like I see so many familiar faces every year, and it's people that I don't even necessarily know, but it's kind of a great community moment, which I know Trudy would have loved. So it's great to be here with you all. And tonight's speaker, Scott, I had an opportunity to say hello to him. Where is he now? I don't even know. He's somewhere backstage. Okay, hair and makeup. Okay. But I was really excited when Jan had asked me to give the intro because there's just like so many things that you could say about Trudy. And then when I found out it was Scott, I thought this is like so easy because he's talking about curiosity, connection, and I think for anyone in this room who knew Trudy or knows of Trudy and knows what she's sort of brought to this world, we all know that curiosity and connection are two like huge pillars of who she was. So a lot of us knew Trudy as someone who really embodied perpetual optimism. It was really this like sense of curiosity, her affinity for connecting things, learning things that really formed the foundation of that. And so when I was researching Scott and he had this quote that was like, when we stay curious, we create the conditions for deeper connection. I felt like, okay, this is perfect for Trudy. Now I have something I can focus on, because otherwise I could be up for here an hour talking about Trudy, right? So let's start with curiosity. At Trudy's memorial service back in 2013, I was fortunate enough to speak, and one of the things I talked about was just her lifelong passion for learning, and the fact that she was always reinventing herself, learning new skill sets. Her passion, of course, was her lifelong career as a public school teacher, where she connected with and championed and empowered so many students who I know some are in the room today, some are not here, but they still email Jan, Trudy's daughter, often to say, hey, this like thing happened that reminded me of Trudy, or just like, how are you? I'll never forget what an impact Trudy had on my life. So her students obviously were a huge factor and presence in her life. So that was a big passion for her. But beyond teaching, she was also an activist, and she was an innovator. So things like founding the Whidbey Island Democratic Club, I know that's something that's really important to a lot of people in this room. She was the 3-term president and lifelong member of the League of Women Voters, and this is like before people were talking about women so much, right? Like this is like back in the day, like when it was, you really had to champion for us to have a seat at the table. She was an advocate and leader of the Oak Harbor High School debate team. She founded the Save Our Kids Anti-Violence Crusade here, among so many other things she did. She was also an author, a playwright. She was a lap swimmer. She would swim down with like the Navy SEALs. I call them the Navy SEALs down at the Oak Harbor pool, and they called her the shark. So she was, they saw her coming, and they were like, okay, get out of the way, Trudy's here. And she had so many other pursuits, and I'm going to get to one of them a little bit later, but I remember saying this at her memorial service. I for a long time worked in public relations, I still do, and I remember after Trudy died, I had this coat of hers that I think Jan or my dad gave me, and I opened up the pockets, and there was a business card in there, and it said Trudy Sundberg Public Relations, and I was like, when was she ever in public relations? But apparently she was at some point. And then I will get to this. She was apparently also the founder of the Whidbey Press. So she was doing a million things. Beyond her traditional accomplishments and her storied legacy, she was always also up to date with everything, like trends, music, culture, sports, always expanding her horizons. Like, yes, she would teach about The Great Gatsby and how it was the best work of literature in our time. But she also was obsessed with The Sopranos and Mad Men. And I still remember my cousin Sean, he gave her a Dave Matthews Band CD when we were in middle school or high school, and Trudy became like the biggest Dave Matthews Band fan. And she was like, this is amazing. And so she was just always learning, always expanding, which I think is a curiosity that I definitely feel instilled in me, and I actually see it in my dad and my aunt and my cousins. I mean, I feel like a lot of us really embody sort of Trudy's lifelong pursuit of learning, which is amazing and such a great, it's very emblematic of the fact that we have this Trudy Sundberg Lecture Series. So I do appreciate that all these folks who help make this a reality every single year. So the second piece, connection. We talked about curiosity, now we'll talk about connection. For those of us who are close to Trudy, again, family, friends, students, everyone in the Whidbey community, we feel the power of her connection around us all the time. And I always talk to my dad and my mom about this, but something will happen and we'll go, oh, that's a connection, that's a connection. And that's something that Trudy would always say. And part of her perpetual optimism was always looking on the bright side, always looking for what she called these cosmic connections and celebrating the power of fate, so much so that the beloved home that my grandfather, John Sundberg, built for her down in Oak Harbor, where they lived for decades, the house was named Kismet, right? It was this idea of fate and everything working out. And the truth is even if something wasn't necessarily fate or destiny, or even that big of a coincidence, because of her perpetual optimism, Trudy made it seem like it was one, right? It was oh, that's cosmic, and it could just be the most random coincidence ever. And I still, to this day, I'm not kidding, constantly, I find these Trudy connection moments. So this past summer, I was rereading a bunch of Joan Didion's old stories, old iconic books. And I wish I had had a chance to talk to Trudy about Joan Didion. I don't know if she liked Joan Didion. I don't know if that was someone she admired. And so I asked my dad, and he's like, I don't know. And Jan's like, probably. And then I found out that Joan Didion was a Tri-Delt at Berkeley, and Trudy was a very proud Tri-Delt at Miami University of Ohio. And so I thought, okay, well, Trudy would love her, right? That's a connection, right? That's totally a connection. And on Miami University, there's a connection, right? So she met my grandfather at Miami University in Ohio. And today, this is a connection, Miami University played in the NCAA March Madness tournament for the first time in really, really, really long time. And I guarantee you, Trudy would be like, oh, the fact that the lecture was on that day and they were playing, that was cosmic. It would have been a thing for her. And even randomly, last year I was supposed to do this tribute and I was sick, and thankfully my amazing cousin Sean stepped in. But leading up to that, I had been in New York and New Jersey, and Trudy went to Trenton High School. She grew up in New Jersey for a part of her childhood and high school years. And I randomly was at the St. Patrick's Day event, and I met someone whose grandmother graduated from Trenton High School in the same couple of years that Trudy did, and she was still alive, and she wasn't necessarily super able to talk about it, but I was like, I can't believe there's a Trudy classmate that's around here. And then I was buying a necklace from a street vendor in New York City the next day, and I was talking to my friend about Seattle, and the guy goes, oh, did you say Seattle? Have you ever heard of this place called Whidbey Island? And I'm like, yeah, that's where this thing is taking place. And he's like, oh, I was based on the Navy base there. Have you heard of Oak Harbor? And I'm like, yes. And it was just, again, it was a connection because I was supposed to be giving that speech later that week. And it was just so crazy in that moment. So to close, I did want to share something special. Jan mentioned this when we had a little reception prior, but we talked about the many hats that Trudy wore, her many careers, reinventions. So one of the things she did was she published a book about Whidbey Island. She had, scoured libraries and different resources, stores, could never find a book about Whidbey. So this is 1961, I believe. Let's see. 1961, so first edition, Whidbey Press. So I'm guessing this is, Trudy's, self-founded publishing company. And Jan was saying earlier that she and my dad and the siblings, they would go sell these at the ferry lines for 35 cents. But it's she had 4 kids, and who has time to just create a book about Whidbey Island? So that'll tell you how passionate she was about this amazing community and this place that we are. And the book exemplifies her constant desire to learn, explore, connect to everything around her. And I'm not going to obviously read the entire book. I do feel like there's some sort of like Sno-Isle library partnership opportunity, I'm just going to say, because I feel like people in this room would probably like to get their hands on it. I'll let you figure that out. But I'm going to read a couple of fun things that Trudy wrote about Whidbey, which I think everyone in this room will still feel like are very relevant today. So, Portrait of an Island by Trudy James Sundberg. So, Whidbey is the kind of place where no point on the island is more than 5 miles from saltwater. The paper boy delivers dry news into your hands on rainy evenings. Square dancing is as popular as rock and roll. Again, 1961, but waters abound in salmon, rock cod, lingcod, bass, sole perch. The weekly paper is read from fishing report to fine print. The presumptuous wind, like a silent, silent butler, insists on closing your car doors. Which is interesting. Again, connection. I came in, we were on the ferry today, and there was a sign that was like, watch out, the door will close behind you because of the wind. And I was thinking, like, this was something Trudy wrote about. Salmon caught that looks like first cousins of Moby Dick. Very little artificial obsolescence, in quotes. Another vestige of Dutch frugality. She did a lot of, in this book, you'll see there's a lot of Dutch history about this region. Sky swishing evergreens, glossy barks, madrona, white alder, a fireplace in almost every home, and a boat in every other garage. Aesthetic, modern places of worship, a gracious blend of the old and the new. Whidbey, where you smell strudel baking on chilly days, cocoa and popcorn when the kids are home from school, pine needles instead of exhaust fumes, fresh, unused air. And I promise I'm almost done. The final part is, Whidbey is the kind of place where you hear, when do you want your money? Answered by, oh, the next time you're in town. How much is it? Answered by, oh, whatever's fair. Here, take these ducks from our freezer home with you. We have more than we can use. Is it good for people rather than will it make money? Who caught the biggest salmon in the Derby? And then there's so many more, and I've only just highlighted a few, but I love the way she ends it, where she says, the crackle of water at West Beach and the unforgettable duet of wind and evergreen hummed in the stillness of the night. So that is Trudy's own words about this amazing place that we are tonight. And I really appreciate the opportunity to share those with you. And thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Kristen. So every year, one of the most challenging tasks for our planning committee is the selection of a topic and a keynote speaker for the coming year. The committee decided on this year's focus, Democracy in Action, Building Bridges, for two main reasons. We wanted to find a topic that, in today's polarizing times, helps bring people closer despite our differences, with the hope that our featured speakers would inspire positive action in shaping our communities. And second, the topic felt especially relevant to our mission at the Foundation to support and uplift our community libraries, as there is hardly an institution that better exemplifies the idea of democracy than the public library. Libraries strengthen democratic societies by providing access to information, supporting education, fostering literacy, and preserving free speech. Libraries function as trusted, non-partisan institutions that provide free and equal access to information for all citizens. And there aren't many free and welcoming places left out there, quite like our libraries, that offer safe spaces for all to engage in conversations like today's presentation, which are essential for a healthy society. Last week, we kicked off the lecture series with our first presentation by Professor Yasmin Sari at the Coopville Library, titled Together, the Promise of Democracy. It was a very engaging and lovely discussion, and it felt both very fitting and exhilarating to be gathered at the library talking about democracy. Tonight, we'll continue to explore this year's topic with our keynote speaker, Scott Shigeoka. Scott is an internationally recognized curiosity expert, TED speaker, and the award-winning author of Seek, How Curiosity Can Transform Your Life and Change the World. His work focuses on how we can improve our well-being and relationships. He has served as a fellow at UC Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center, and I love this next title, he was the head of curiosity cultivation at the Eames Institute. Scott is also the host and creator of the Curiosity Mobile, as well as a playwright and artist. He has appeared on Today's Show, PBS, New York Times, NPR, BBC, and many other global outlets to spread what he calls the gospel of curiosity. Please note that after the presentation, there will be time for questions from the audience, so please remain in your seats. Also, please take a look at your program. If it has a gold sticker on the back, you were selected to receive a complimentary copy of Scott's book, Seek. Scott generously donated copies of his book, and in the spirit of fairness and democracy, we randomly place these stickers on tonight's programs. If you already have his book, or if you don't need a copy, please consider offering it to your neighbor. And now, please join me in giving a warm Whidbey welcome to Scott Shigeoka.
I am so grateful to be here for many, many reasons. I said earlier today when I first learned more about Trudy's life that she really feels like a kindred spirit, a kindred soul to the way that I try to live my life, and so it's really an honor to be able to share more about curiosity in her name and in her legacy. And the other thing I was going to say is I have Washington State ties, so I'm from Hawaii originally. But oh yeah, we got Hawaii people here. Actually, the hotel that I'm staying at is right next to Ikaika's Grill, which is a Hawaiian spot. So I was like, wow, another cosmic serendipitous moment. But I actually went to school at Wazoo, at Washington State University. So I have many friends from Whidbey Island, and I also have dear friends who participated in the Power of Hope camp, which was led by an incredible program here on Whidbey Island that was at the Whidbey Institute, co-founded by Charlie and Peggy. So I just have so many connection points to this island, and I had never been here before until today. So I'm so happy to be here with you as my introduction to Whidbey. So I wanted to start off with a mindfulness practice as a way of grounding into this moment. And so if you'd like to join me, I invite you to close your eyes or keep a soft gaze. And we're going to start by taking a collective deep breath in through our nose and out through our mouth. Let's take another deep inhale through our nose and out through our mouth. Just one more deep inhale through our nose and exhaling through our mouth. With your eyes closed or a soft gaze, I invite you to think about one person in your life, hopefully there are many, but just one person who makes you feel seen, who makes you feel heard, who makes you feel valued, that you matter because they are curious about you. Just one person. This might be a family member, a friend, a neighbor. It might be someone who is here with us today, or someone who is no longer on this earth with us in the physical form. And just think about this one person with your eyes closed or a soft gaze. And imagine them, if you can, sitting in front of you. And if you have aphantasia and that's hard for you to visualize in your mind's eye, you can think about what they mean to you instead. But if you can visualize them in your mind's eye, picture them in front of you, and picture yourself giving your appreciation and your gratitude to them. Maybe that's giving them a big hug or a smile or saying thank you in your language. just sitting in that experience, feeling that appreciation for someone who makes you feel like you matter because they are curious about you. And then we're going to take a final deep breath through our nose and exhale through our mouth. You can gently open your eyes. And if anyone would like to just share the first name, popcorn style, I'll repeat it back through the microphone, of the person they thought about. I think this is a great way of honoring all of the people who have made us feel like we matter because they're curious about us. Any names? Mom, yeah. Bernadine. So, Ben. Bonnie, Sam. And Annie. Amy. So many. There's so many. And I want to have this moment for you all to just recognize that it's not just all of us that's in this room today or the folks that are watching online, but we all carry with us many people who in many ways were our Trudies, were the people that made us feel so seen and valued because they were relentlessly curious about us. They were interested in who we are, what we believe, what we loved, what we disliked. And this exercise also makes me think, are we that person for other people? If there was another group of people in this room who we knew, would they think about us, right? And I like starting here because I think this is a lived way of understanding why curiosity matters. It's the reason why I do my work in the world. It is because curiosity is one of the best tools that we have to help people feel valued. And this is a moment in our country and in our communities where there is devaluing and dehumanization that is happening in many spaces, both in the physical world and in the digital world. And I feel that curiosity is an antidote. It's a tool. It's a practice that we all have for this moment. So what is curiosity for those who are not as familiar? Curiosity is the desire to know and understand. So we often think about this in an intellectual way. We go to the local library and we use our library cards and we pick up books or we listen to them or films and we learn more about the world that we live in. We learn more about ourselves. Maybe you're interested in music, so you go and you listen to discographies and full records of people that you're interested in hearing. That's one way of getting curious as well. I like to, when I was at South Whidbey High School, one of the things I told the students there is, you have this vast opportunity to get curious every day and to read something new or to learn something about someone's life you're unfamiliar with and to fill our minds and our hearts with new information and new knowledge that can take us to incredible places. And so that is a beautiful part of curiosity, but it's only one part of curiosity. What my work is focused on is how do we take that intellectual curiosity that often lives in our head and bring it down into our hearts. And I call that heart-centered curiosity. It's this way of using our curiosity towards others to help them to be understood and also to feel valued in their lives. And so this kind of curiosity lives on a spectrum. And we heard through the snippet in the zine about the sea. I think that's a great way to think about this spectrum, that there's a shallow end and a deep end. So on the shallow end of curiosity, it's the kinds of questions we typically ask people when we're meeting them. Perhaps like at an event today, we'll say, what's your name? Where do you live on the island? Or where did you come in from? What do you do for work? Or if you're retired, how are you spending your time? These are all great ways of getting to learn about data points of who a person is, but it's only a slice, or it's only a surface of who they truly are. And so a big opportunity we have is to move down the spectrum towards the deep end. And there we ask a different quality of questions. We might ask a question like, what's the story of your name? The story of your name might reveal something about your culture, about who named you, about your relationship to your own name. Instead of asking where on Whidbey Island do you live, which is a great question, but you might ask, what does Whidbey mean to you? What does this island mean to you? What do you fight for on this island? What do you get excited about? on this island? Tell me more about your story of how your family or your life looks like on Whidbey. And so this quality of question in the deep end of curiosity opens up this vast portal for connection. It is what the research shows us is that when we are on the deep end, that's where most of the transformation lives, both transformation for our connections with others, but also within ourselves. But that also doesn't mean that we go around and we ask people, tell me about your deepest childhood trauma. Tell me about the thing that keeps you up at night. Tell me about the thing you're most fearful of in your entire life as an opening question. Yes, we want to connect with the people that are around us, but we have to build trust and we have to build a relationship. I always say that curiosity is something that we earn. It's not deserved. And what I mean by that is you might be curious about someone's hair, about their culture, about whether they're pregnant or not. It does not mean you're entitled to that information. You have to build that trust. You have to build a real relationship with that person to be able to receive and be met with your curiosity. There's all of these wonderful benefits from our curiosity. One of them is that it is deeply connected to how we unwind our anxiety. And I don't want to make a hyperbole here, but like a lot of the high school students that I've met today were very excited about this point because I think we live in a very anxious time. Many of us are very anxious. There's a lot of uncertainty. And researchers like Dr. Judd Brewer and others have found that when you're feeling a sense of anxiety come through you, one of the best tools or practices you can do to move through that state is to get curious. Curiosity is a great way of reducing the fears that we have. That's why clinicians use it for things like exposure and contact therapy. When you are afraid of, let's say, a spider or you're afraid of heights, it sounds paradoxical, but one of the best things you can do is to come into contact with it slowly. Maybe see a picture of a spider, see a movie of one, maybe hold one if you dare in your own hands. But then that starts to build a relationship with something that you fear. And then you start to think and get inwardly curious, why did I have this fear of spiders to begin with? Where does that mythology come from? Where did my fear first begin? Maybe are there benefits to spiders? Are there reasons why they're important for our ecology? And I bring spiders up or heights up, but actually we do this even with people who are different from us. We feel threatened by people who we do not often come into contact with, or who hold different political beliefs than us, or hold different ideologies or faith backgrounds. It is why we live in a divisive time full of effective polarization. So one of the best things we can do is to come into contact with people. But we can't just come into contact with people that can also be negative and destructive. We have to do it in a way that leads to a positive contact. And one of the best ways we can do that is to ensure that there's curiosity present. The second thing that I was going to share today is that actually even at UW, there was some really interesting research about how curiosity is used in relationships. And if you look at the data from the Gottmans or the Aarons or wonderful psychological researchers that exist, that have been doing this research for a very long time, they found that when married couples or romantic partners are using curiosity in their relationships, it is more likely that they will stay in those relationships and also be happier in them. There's something called a bid for attention. And a bid for attention is basically when you say something like, oh, I had the best meal yesterday, or, I saw that there's this new exhibit opening up around town, or have you ever been to the Price Sculpture, park nearby? These are all ways of trying to engage with the people around us. And what we often do is we say, oh, wow, no, I didn't know about that sculpture garden. That's really great. Or, oh, I'm glad you had a great dinner. That's great to know. And the conversation and the relationship sort of ends there. But if you use a practice of curiosity and you say, tell me more, and you try to get more information when a bid for attention is presented, you say, what was your favorite sculpture? What did you eat? What was the best meal you had on your last trip? Tell me more about that. And as you go deeper and deeper, what you do is you sustain that relationship and that conversation. This isn't just for our romantic partnerships, by the way. There's been new research to show that when you have curiosity towards friends and also towards neighbors, those relationships tend to be more long-lasting and more satisfying as well. So curiosity is an important part of our relational fabric. And then finally, in this moment of affective polarization and division, curiosity is a tool for us to really recognize our common humanity. Clinicians, I don't know if there are former or current therapists in the room, but curiosity is actually a tool that many clinicians will use, especially in a moment of aggression or in a moment of high emotions. Because what curiosity does is it slows us down. And when we slow down during conflict, we reduce our cortisol levels and we're able to engage in a more open-hearted way. And so if you're feeling like you're in this deep argument with someone at the family dinner table or at a reunion or at a public event, try to implement a practice of curiosity. That curiosity, asking questions, exploring perspectives or values in a deeper way can actually slow down the process of conflict and allow, hopefully, more of an opportunity for understanding. So, if you didn't care about any of those things, which I hope everyone in this room cares about well-being and relationships and our shared humanity, know that it also helps you to live longer, and it also improves our health span. So if there's any Death Becomes Her fans up here, it is the secret potion and elixir to our everlasting lives. So I have a lot of TV references in here. So I was doing a lot of this work at UC Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center. They're an incredible organization where we're known for translating the science of topics like awe and happiness and curiosity and translating them into podcasts or into media articles or even helping movie studios like Pixar. We were the center that helped the director Pete Docter with Inside Out. I don't know if you've seen that animation film. It's really amazing. But how do you embed the psychological sciences of curiosity and care and happiness and awe and joy and anger and all of these really important human emotions into stories or into the media that we actually consume? That's our bread and butter. Unfortunately, for all of the researchers in the room, people don't often read white papers. So this is a great way for us to get that information out into the world. And that's what we do at the center. But I was doing all of this work on curiosity at the center and sharing it and preaching the gospel. And I was like, wow, have I actually practiced this much in my own life, especially across differences? And I realized there wasn't a lot of opportunities outside of my family dynamics and divisions where I was able to do that. And so I actually packed everything into a Toyota Prius, and I traveled across the country for 12 months. I showered at Planet Fitnesses. I lived literally and slept in the back of my Prius, very low height clearance. And I met with people who had very different views from me in places where I had no real experience in. I went to Trump rallies. I went to live in the rural South and rural Appalachia for months. I met people who had very different views and convictions and values from me. And what I learned from this trip is that curiosity can't be used as a tool for persuasion. Actually, curiosity is our best tool for our beliefs and our views to be transformed. It goes back to what Bell Hooks wrote, which is that everyone has the capacity to be transformed. But what people often use that quote for is to try to transform other people. But curiosity reminds us that we actually are the ones that need to be transformed. We have assumptions, we have biases that we're holding on to about people who are different from us, and there's a lot more that we can do to better understand them. So one of those great stories that came out of this trip was an organization called Nuns and Nuns. So it was a group of NONESs, millennials, who lived with Catholic sisters, nuns, women religious, for 6 months in a convent. And it was really beautiful. I actually spoke to Sarah, one of those millennials, and she said, we do these vows on the vows of chastity, obedience, and poverty that the women religious take. And I remember having this negative connotation about the vow of chastity in particular. I thought, isn't chastity a word or an expression that's exerting power over women or to control our bodies, but I was staying curious, and I went to these salons where I learned more about the vows from the perspective of the sisters. And slowly over time, through her curiosity, Sarah's perspective began to change, and she now calls the vow of chastity the deprivatization of love, which I love. It's basically, to her, this new concept that she has in her mind that women religious take the vow of chastity because they want to give their care and their love to as many people as possible. What I once thought was about control or exertion of power is actually about something so much more beautiful. And I read about their story in my book, Seek. And today, Sarah, alongside of many of those participants, are working with Catholic sisters on a new project called Land Justice Futures. The Catholic Church is one of the largest landowners in our country and in the world, and they're working on restewarding that land for conservation and for racial and indigenous justice. It's really powerful. So that all came from living in curiosity with people who were very different from them. And the Catholic sisters learned so much too, because curiosity is always a two-directional process and practice. So recent research that just came out this year, actually a few weeks ago, by PolicyLink, which is an amazing nonprofit, found that most Americans want a democracy in a country that includes everyone, where everyone belongs. Most Americans want that. But most Americans also believe it is not possible. There is no way that we can create a country or a democracy where everyone is included and everyone belongs. And I call this the belief gap, because we want something to happen, but we do not think it is possible. And so much of how we close belief gaps is through storytelling and narrative work, like much of what we are doing today, talking about the power and the promise of curiosity. But I realized that there was still more work for me to get done on closing this belief gap. And I was always told after folks would read my book, Seek, was there any film or footage or anything like that taken about your journey, going across the country? And I was like, no, I started as a reporter at the Washington Post. I've always been a writer. But if I ever do this trip again, I will have a film crew with me. Well, that trip just started in January. I actually flew from Arkansas to here to do this talk, but I'm getting back on the road in that Curiosity Mobile, this van, that a motley crew of friends and I have wrapped and are taking across the country for 6 months. And we're finding incredible stories that we're posting onto social media because that's where people are, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And in Arkansas, for instance, I was just there last week. We interviewed a community effort there in a town in Arkansas that was called the Long Welcome. This program that says, when agencies give money for resettlement of refugees and immigrants in this country, it's often a 6-month timeline. But we asked, what would it look like if this was generational work? What if we brought welcoming neighbors together for dinners, for carpooling their kids to their shared schools, and created connections not for 6 months, but for 5 years? What would that look like? And this town in Arkansas has found huge success in this program, incredible success. And again, it's been two-way. Not only are refugees and immigrants that we interviewed getting so much from this program, feeling like they belong, feeling that they have real social capital who believe in them and want to support them, but the welcoming communities, the neighbors, are learning so much from them too. Are gaining real friends, are learning about culture and the world and eating food that they never would have in this town in Arkansas if it wasn't for instance, one of the individuals who opened up an Afghani food truck in their community. So a beautiful two-way connection. In Texas, where I was before Arkansas, we interviewed librarians who are on the front lines of our democracy right now. And they're saying, no, we will not pull these books off of our shelves because everyone deserves access to this information. And when you pull a book off that has a story or a character of someone who has a different view than what you agree with, what that signals is you don't belong here. And we refuse as librarians to say to anyone that they do not belong here. Because libraries are, in fact, the place where everyone does belong. and everyone is welcomed. And these librarians, they told me that they are being threatened with violence, death threats. They're being doxxed. Some of them have been fired or relocated into new jobs. I mean, this is really the front lines of our democracy. And these librarians are standing up and saying, we will not stand up for this. And when I asked them, what is the one thing that we can do to support you? They said, use your library card so we can show that libraries are essential community infrastructure, but also come to our school board meetings, come to the library meetings in your community and stand up for what you feel, what I feel is not a political issue, but an American issue. One where there is rampant desires for censorship and groups of people like these librarians who are saying we will not stand for this. So incredible stories that we're sharing on social media. And hopefully it'll become a TV show. That's the goal. That's the dream. We're packaging it with an amazing producer from HBO, and I think we need more of these kinds of stories reaching more audiences. So hopefully you'll see it on a streamer near you. If you want to learn more about that, by the way, there's a QR code here. You can pull it up, but you can also look up the Curiosity Mobile online, and there's more information. Also, if you work in TV, please come see me, because I would love to talk to you, or if you know someone. Speaking of TV, any Ted Lasso fans in here? Okay, yeah, lots of Ted Lasso fans. I love Ted Lasso. And there's a really amazing scene in Ted Lasso with darts. Does anyone remember the dart scene? Okay, a lot of people are like, yes, I remember that. If you don't remember, basically what Ted was saying is that if only people were truly curious about him, would they truly see the potential, the promise, the impact that he could have on this world, right? But oftentimes people are incurious, and they don't recognize someone's talents or explore what talents they have. And when we are incurious, we often judge, and when we judge, we can misjudge. So I know you're not supposed to do this, but I am going to read something off of my book, which is what this is pulled from. So embracing curiosity as a value means more than adding it to your organization's vision statement. Just like putting live, love, laugh on your wall at your home doesn't bring more of that into your life. Values are meant to be lived out loud. They should be expressed and witnessed. No offense to anyone here with the live, love, laugh on your wall. I love that for you. All I'm trying to say, sorry, I often don't know which segment of the market I'm talking to. So if that is you, I love that for you. And one of the important things that I want to preach here today is that we can't just say we have a value like curiosity. We have to do what Trudy does, right? We have to actually live out those values. And I really saw that from my parents. I used to get really annoyed that they would talk to every single person when we're just trying to get to the grocery store, or we would miss our bus stop because they would be talking to people on the bus. But now looking back, I'm so grateful for my mom and dad for modeling that. One of the things that we know from the research is that the best way to bring a culture of curiosity, especially to children, is for them to see it modeled from their teachers, from their parents, from adult figures, or other children in their lives. That's how culture is spread. So you just practicing your curiosity, you do not know the impact that that could potentially have on so many of the people that are around you. So how do we practice curiosity? Well, get my book, Seek, or if you got the gold sticker, I love that for you, you will get one. But it's basically like an artist's way for curiosity. There's a lot of practices in there that you can try to exercise this muscle of curiosity, and it is a muscle. When we practice our curiosity more and more, we grow the muscle, we become more competent at it. It becomes easier for us. That was one of the questions actually at South Whidbey High. It's like, I'm really nervous about using my curiosity. Like, what if I say something that's like cringe, or say something that's like gonna be received in the wrong way? Well, the more and more you practice it, the easier it becomes, and you realize, wow, like people really love it when I'm curious about them. And the research supports this as well. When you're a curious person, you're often more liked, and in the workplace, you're often seen as more competent. And so curiosity has not only a powerful, real impact in our lives and our relationships, but in the optics, or in the ways that people see us. So the first practice that I wanted to share is turn toward, not away. And so this is based off of that research that I had brought up, is that when you hear your partner or a family member or your child or a neighbor or anyone say something to you that's a bit of attention, like, I just saw a really beautiful flower that grew in my garden. Don't just say, that's nice, I love that. Respond with your curiosity. What kind of flower was it? When did you first see it? When did you plant it? What's your relationship to flowers? Oh my gosh, that reminds me of a story about my relationship to flowers. And when we get into a habit of not just saying, that's nice, we actually are able to turn towards the people around us and make them feel valued. I actually just did this in my own life with my partner, who's a filmmaker, and he was like, I just saw the most incredible set today, and I was like, I love that for you, and then I turned to whatever I was doing, not realizing that I was cutting the conversation and that relationship short. And what I should have said was, tell me more about it. Where was it? What did you see? Why did you love it? What film is this for? But what I did instead was that all too human habit of saying, that's great. So this practice, turn towards, not away, is a reminder for us to say, tell me more. 3 really powerful words that can really help our relationships to blossom. The second practice is to model what I call become an admitter. And an admitter, some of y'all are not gonna like this, but an admitter is someone who admits when they are wrong, or admits when they do not know something. And I actually, when I lead leadership retreats, for instance, in workplaces, I'll have all of the leaders admit to something that they did wrong or did not know. And then I have everyone else vibrantly clap and applause and cheer them on so that they can feel and receive the love for that moment that they made a mistake. And it sounds cheeky at first, but really what we're doing here is we're creating new social norms. We're creating new social norms where we say that it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to be curious and to learn. So often we are trained in our schools and in our workplaces to have the answers, but we're less trained to have the right questions. And so this is really a form of intellectual humility, which is defined as knowing the limits to your own knowledge. And what's beautiful about that is it reminds us that we are all interdependent on one another. We're celebrating the Declaration of Independence, the signing of it in Philadelphia. There's an amazing project right now called Project Interdependence. What if we had a declaration of interdependence? What if it wasn't just about independence, but it was also about how we are connected and we need one another? And so this idea of admitting, of creating a culture of humility is so vital for our democracy right now and also for our relationships. And one interesting thing to know is that if you are seen as a curious leader in your workplace and you make a mistake, which is something so feared right now in outrage and cancel culture, I don't want to say the wrong thing, I don't want to do the wrong thing. Well, if you're seen as a curious person, even if you say the wrong thing or make a mistake, you're more easily forgiven for it because you are curious. That's what the research is suggesting. And this is not just true in the workplace, it's also true in our interpersonal relationships. If you make a mistake with someone that you love, if you're seen as curious, you're more easily forgiven for those mistakes. So it almost, in a way, curiosity builds this armor of protection while keeping us authentic and vulnerable at the same time. It's one of the things I love the most about curiosity. And the final practice I wanted to share, there's so many more in the book, and I can share more tonight too, like when we're out milling in the audience here, but is see the person, not the label. And so oftentimes, what our silly brains do is we meet someone new and we feel as though we know things about them because of the groups that they belong to. So this is just what our brains do. We say, oh, this person is older or younger, this person is a Republican, this person's a Democrat, this person's a Christian, this person's an atheist, this person's queer, this person's straight. So I know everything that I need to know about this person because of those identities and those groups that they belong to, which obviously is not true. No two Republicans are the same, no two Christians are the same, no two queer Asian Americans are the same. So we all have a spectrum of individuality. And it is our responsibility, really, to individuate every person that we meet and to interrupt this bias that we have, that our brain has, that says, I know everything about you because of this label you have or this group you belong to. So that's what see the person, not the label is. A lot of the high school students today were like, yeah. They were like, I saw people clocking at like T, for those who know what that is. They were just like really feeling this one, because I think, especially in the social media world, this is something that's really felt. And especially in a divided world, this is something that's really felt. Just 4 other quick, fun, rapid practices for you. You can practice mindfulness like we did today, so there was a double win for that. I was also priming you for curiosity when we did a mindfulness practice. You can take a curiosity stroll, a couple of minutes around wherever you live on this island or wherever you live in Washington, and just tap into one of your senses on that walk. Your sense of smell, your sense of sight, your sense of touch. Another reminder is to focus on personal stories. You know, a lot of folks are like, I just don't know how to get through some of this like political discourse with my family. Well, one of the invitations I have for you is to get curious about personal stories, to focus on what are the lived experiences that people have. And then finally, to make curiosity a norm. When we normalize curiosity, like what we're doing today, or us modeling it for the people around us, more and more people practice curiosity too. And in many ways, curiosity is contagious. So you can take the dive and practice your own curiosity in the 3 ways that I shared. Another way is to do it through questions. And we're so automated to say, how are you? How's it going? How's your day? So I wanted to offer some other questions for you outside of that can help you to go a little bit deeper. Some of my favorite questions are, what is life teaching you right now? I love that one. Who are you missing? That's a really deep one. What puts you in a state of ease? Why? And then some other powerful questions for those of you in workplaces and living within community. How can I be here for you in a way that's meaningful? Who is a person that propelled you to get to the place you are today? And I actually have a question bank in my phone on the Notes app, and I recommend you all do the same thing, because we're always collecting the answers, but again, are we actually cataloging the powerful questions that we are asked or that we ask others? And when you go to that next event or you go to the next party, when you have this exercise of actually writing down questions that are really powerful, you're more likely to ask them. So it just creates a better experience. It's also great if you have social anxiety, I found. So to like be, to have the questions that you might ask when you go somewhere. There is something, though, that I talked about in the New York Times called predatory curiosity. It's when someone looks like they're being curious, they're leaning in, they're asking questions. Oh, tell me more about that. And then, bam, they give you like a CVS receipt size like line of arguments on why you're wrong or why you don't know what you're talking about. I think we've all experienced something like this. It's what a prosecutor or detective does. They're really trying to get to the bottom of something, right? They're really trying to ask questions so that they can further an agenda or a motive that they have. And I think what's important for us to remember is that predatory curiosity can be helpful in certain situations, but it is not true curiosity, in my opinion. True curiosity is open-hearted, and it's open-minded. It's, I'm going to ask this question, and I have no idea where this is going to take me. I have no idea what you will say to me or how I will respond to it. That is what true curiosity is. So we need to choose curiosity in this moment of division. It's one of our essential democratic practices that I think we need now, especially today. And I think that when we are curious about someone else, just like you meditated, did that mindfulness practice on earlier tonight, when we are curious about someone, what we're really saying is, I want to know you, and I want to understand you, and I have these questions about you because I care about you, because I want to know you. I want to know who you are. I want to understand you on the deepest levels that I can, not because I want to change you, but because I love you. So in that way, I feel that curiosity is an act of love. You know, we say love is a verb, but we never talk about what is the verb. Like, how do we actually do that? I think curiosity is the way that we practice love. And if we do this in our relationships, you know, with the people sitting next to us, with our loved ones, with our neighbors here on the island or beyond, that is what creates a system of curiosity that spreads far beyond our community. And that's the exciting part. When we practice this on our own individually, it will spread beyond us in ways that we might not even know. And the final thing I'll say is that those who feel seen, those who feel like they matter, those who feel valued, stay. So when we are curious about the people around us, our friends, our family, our loved ones, our community members, our neighbors, what we're really saying is, stay, you belong here. That's what I love about curiosity. It reminds us that we all belong here and we all matter, so much so that we all deserve curiosity. So thank you so much. You can learn more about my work on this QR code. You can applaud if you want to. You don't have to. No pressure. And there will be books available. Before we jump to a Q&A question, I did want us to practice curiosity one more time. And so while I was in the back doing hair and makeup, wink, wink, I was also watching y'all as you were coming into the room so I know who you came in with, and that matters for this exercise because I want you to have a conversation with someone here who you didn't come here with, someone who you don't know that well, mostly in pairs, but there may be some groups of 3, and that's okay. And I want you to respond to this prompt. Who was a person that you thought of in your mindfulness practice? Who is that person that makes you feel seen and heard because they're curious about you? And share a little bit more about them in this conversation. And if you're like, Scott, you are forcing vulnerability right now, and I don't like that, and I don't want to do this, I have an alternate prompt for you because I never want anyone to feel like they're in an extreme, scary place. Just an uncomfortable place is great because then you're growing, but not an extreme. So if that feels extreme to you, another prompt I have for you is, what are you getting curious about right now in your life? But I really encourage you to talk about that person that you saw in your mind's eye as a way of honoring that person who makes you feel valued. So have a conversation with a neighbor, someone, 1 or 2 other people. I'm going to give you a total of 5 minutes, and then I'm going to bring you all back, and then we're going to have a Q&A. Sound good? And you're going to love it. If you're feeling a little bit like, I don't know, trust me, it's going to be hard to bring you back because you'll be so invested in your conversation. All right, 5 minutes. Have a great conversation. 2 more minutes, 2 more minutes. All right, 1 more minute. All right, start wrapping up your conversations, saying thank you to your neighbor or your partner. All right. I would love to, if you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. Hear me, clap 3 times. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I would love to hear, and I'll share it back in the mic just so folks can know what folks are saying in the crowd. Do a few folks just want to share a word or something that's come, what they're feeling right now in this moment? Yeah. Gratitude. Connected, yes. Relax. Curious. Yeah, there's a lot of people that say curious at the same time. That's great. Maybe a couple more. Connection. Sorry? Reconnected. Ooh. Vulnerable. Real. Challenge. Very true. Received. Seen. New friendship. Love it. Amazing. Sorry? Common bond. I love it. Well, thank you all so much for, sharing that. And I was right, wasn't I, that it's harder to pull people back, even if you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. And then you're like, I love this. And even if you were paired with someone who you did come here with, hopefully you had an opportunity to have a deeper connection as well.